Welcome to Tattooed Freaks in Business Suits, recorded live from the kitchen of the Personal Touch Career Services in Denver, Colorado. I am your host, Donna Shannon. As a professional career coach, I help people navigate the hiring maze to get the jobs they really love. In addition to working with job seekers one-on-one, I do have a book available. You can find How to Get a Job Without Going Crazy on Amazon. My guest today is Nancy Fingerhood, who I will have her introduce herself in just a moment. Overall, our show's purpose is to explore and redefine the world of work, especially as Gen X millennials and those to come after seek positions of leadership that still allow them to be themselves. Every show, we will explore a topic related to business or job searching, and of course, we are going to talk about tattoos. So our sponsor is the Personal Touch Career Services, Denver's top-rated career coaches. We focus on the practical tools for your job search, including resumes, LinkedIn profiles, job search coaching, and ongoing classes. Our ridiculously long website is personaltouchcareerservices.com. Once again, that's personaltouchcareerservices.com, or, you can just Google it. Well, thank you very much for coming in today, Nancy.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I actually saw you present at the Disrupt HR event in August of 2018, which was just last week. Mm-hmm. And you have a fascinating project called I Too Am Qualified. What is that and what's it all about?
Well, I Too Am Qualified is a visual campaign to put a face to age discrimination in the workplace. It's to bring awareness to ageism. And my husband and I are part-time photographers. Mm-hmm. And so we thought that it would be good to bring awareness through a visual medium. It's funny because originally we had thought of doing a documentary. And I had reached out to an activist named Ashton Applewhite and spoke to her, and she had told me about a project called I Too Am Oxford, which was showing the face of racism at college campuses. So I thought it was really fascinating to turn that into an ageism awareness campaign. We've received, in addition to taking a lot of photos, we've also received anonymous stories from people who have experienced age discrimination in the workplace. And some of them are quite compelling. So then we decided we wanted to bring awareness even further by reaching out to HR professionals and recruiters and bring awareness that way.
Great. So you're mentioning that it's a visual medium. Can you just describe for me a little bit what the pictures look like?
Sure. We give the person a whiteboard, and on the whiteboard they write one or two brief sentences explaining how they feel about ageism in the workplace or an experience that they've had dealing with it. So it kind of sums up how they feel, like I said, or an experience, and then we take their photo to just bring to light what's going on out there, what, is happening in real life.
Yeah, they're actually very powerful images. I must say I was quite moved when I saw them, and I went and I looked at your Facebook page and a little bit more, because you have your own WordPress too, right?
Well, yes. So we have itooamqualified.wordpress.com, and we also have a Twitter as well for I Too Am Qualified.
Yeah. They're awesome pictures. I encourage anyone to go and look at them, because sometimes I think we get this mindset of, ageism, sure, this is for people who are hitting their 60s and having a hard time. And it's like, no, ageism goes down into low 40s. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. And it's why we got started in this. Was my husband and I, more my husband, but we were both kind of looking out for different jobs and searching, and felt that there were positions we were qualified for and not getting any callbacks.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe we should, it was a horrible thought in my head, but it was maybe we need to take the dates off of our resume, graduation dates, that is.
Yeah.
And I remembered, this was in my late 30s, I was changing careers. And my mom said to me, you better get your act together soon because you may be facing age discrimination in the near future. And I just was like, yeah, right, sure, whatever, no way. But I believe that there is a problem, and so we did take dates off the resumes. He has found a job, and I'm working part-time, but a lot of the stories we've received do talk about that perception that perhaps on my resume they're seeing the dates, they're seeing the number of years of experience I have, and that's why I'm not getting called for interviews.
Yeah, there was one gentleman in particular, I remember his sign very vividly, saying that he has 25 years of experience in IT, and he has to remove 13 years off of his experience before he ever got an interview.
Right. Yeah, there's that. And then just like I said, the stories, one woman wrote that she tried to hide her age on her resume, but if she does get called in for an interview, they see her, it's all over from there.
Yeah. There's another image with a older woman. She had the full white hair, and it was just saying that, my brains didn't fall out of my head, basically.
Yeah, exactly. My brains didn't fall out. And I love that one. She actually sent that to us. We didn't take that one. And that's another thing. So this is nationwide. We're based here in Denver, Colorado, so we'll go and take photos here. But we encourage people to send in high-resolution photos that we would put on our website and share as well.
Now, as a career coach, I often see these same concerns come up with job seekers too. And, it's still hard for me to accept that at 40 years old, people are facing age discrimination. But, I'm 48 myself. Obviously, I'm a Gen Xer. And it's just hard to shift the mind into going, why are employers overlooking people?
Yeah, in a tight... And one of the things I said at the Disrupt HR was there's a labor shortage here.
Yeah.
So you're not tapping into this great resource.
Yeah. So what are some of the other common incidences or themes that you're seeing in the stories that have come up about the age discrimination issues?
Another thing that has come up are just the recruitment ads.
Yeah.
I can read for you one. Somebody wrote in that he was looking online and he saw an ad that said they were looking for someone youthful.
Oh, yeah.
And, that could be seen as blatant bias. Also, I in my slideshow at Disrupt HR, I did show an ad for one company that they literally said looking for someone young. So that's pretty blatant.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the bias, though, is unintentional, or, they can say implicit or unconscious bias. That's something that's pretty big, I think, in this situation. I think people aren't aware of their internalized ageism.
Yeah.
It's a bias.
That's a great way to put it, because that's where I'm at. At 48, I'm like, I don't have age discrimination, but of course I own my own business. But if I were out there trying to get a job, that would definitely be an impact.
So I think, with HR and recruitment, it really needs to be brought up because it's a normalized form of prejudice. There's a lot of jokes about, obviously, if you're at work and someone calls you an old fart, that's pretty obvious and blatant and stupid of them to do that. But there's other more subtle forms, right? There's, your boss saying, so have you thought about retirement? There's not being invited to company lunches or, after work social hours or something like that. Kind of being ignored or pushed away in a way, and it's not quite as obvious. One thing that I suggest people do is ask for reviews from their supervisors. If you feel like you may be facing this, make sure that you're getting the reviews, you're getting very detailed reviews on your performance, so that if anything were to come up, you can say, well, no, I've been doing a great job. Because sometimes also what happens is you get dinged for something that a younger worker may not. They're looking for things. They're not going to say it to your face that you're an old fart, but they're looking for things.
Yeah, so there's actually, this is one of the evil sides of HR, and I can spill the beans because I used to do HR.
Okay.
It's known as building your case. It's when you're looking at an employee, and sometimes like a supervisor will come to you and they're like, we need to get rid of this person for whatever reason and are not getting along. So sometimes HR will go, okay, we need to get documentation of behavior. And they're building the case for why would they be letting you go. If it was one of these situations where they didn't want to pay severance or unemployment, that's where they're going to do the documentation side. So in what you're encouraging them to do is to get the reviews, get specific feedback on the things you're doing right. And if there's any things that needs improvement, the next step is specifically asking, what outcomes should I focus on for improvement? And how are we going to quantify this to show that I have been improving? And that will help.
Because you have to build your case.
Yes.
What I have noticed is the majority of people who've reached out to me are people who are looking for work, not in the situation right now. So I think that that's a huge part of the age discrimination is in the hiring aspect. I mean, it also happens obviously on the job where you're getting pushed out, like I mentioned. But from what research I've done, 75% or so of cases through the EEOC on age discrimination have been people who are already in the job and they're facing discrimination there.
Right.
So a very small percentage who are using any legal action are the ones looking for a job. However, the majority of people, I think, facing it or reaching out to us are the ones who are actually looking for a job. And it's because it's so hard to prove age discrimination on the job. Can you imagine trying to do it in the hiring process?
It's really dang near impossible because they use all kinds of excuses. They don't call it age discrimination. They call you overqualified, right? And then they can back it up with logic, because the logic being, if you're overqualified for a position, you're going to ask for more money. You're going to get bored with this job if it's a lateral move for you, or even a step down because you're looking to make a career change.
And those are stereotypes. You know, those are assumptions. At least bring the person into the interview. Are older workers the only ones who are going to try to negotiate on salary? Really? No, I don't think so. The other thing is a lot of times the salary is posted online. They know what the parameters are. A lot of older workers, well, I don't say a lot, but some older workers, are looking for stability. They may not be looking to get a promotion. They just want stability. So I think that there are these assumptions that are made on the part of HR, and you don't really get to know the person. And you have to bring them in for an interview at least and ask. And talk face to face. People assume an older worker is going to leave in 5 years because they're going to retire. Well, the average tenure is 4.2 years. And in fact, it's even lower with younger workers.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah.
So, you're looking at 2.5 years, where from this research I've done, for the age group 55 to 64, the median tenure is 10.1 years. So they're actually going to stay longer.
And then one of the things I think about too is, as Gen X, my age of retirement is not 65 from the government, it is 72. Even at age 52, when I get there, I still have to work for another 20 years. It's like, don't dismiss me from professional roles and make me a Walmart greeter because you don't like the shade of my hair. It's got too much gray.
Exactly. And having older workers having people in the workforce helps the economy in general, because baby boomers have a lot of spending power, and that helps our economy, and that creates more jobs. It hurts everyone with that type of discrimination. Like I said, I just want to get the conversation going. I just want to get people talking about this within HR and recruitment and in their companies. And there's ways to do that. There's lunch and learns. There are mentoring programs that they can start. I think there's a lot of really positive things that HR professionals can do. And I think if they kind of frame it in a way that this is an intergenerational organization. It's not just about, we've got to hire older workers. It's, we're utilizing the skills and talents of all the generations.
So can you tell us about any existing legislation that helps protect people from age discrimination?
Absolutely. There is the Age Discrimination and Employment Act. However, it is not as strong as legislation that protects people for, say, gender or race or religious discrimination, because those forms of discrimination are protected under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964,
Right.
and age is not protected under the Title VII. So they created in 1967 the Age Discrimination and Employment Act. However, through the years, through Supreme Court and federal court rulings, they've actually diminished the protections of the ADEA. In particular, there was a case in 2009 in which the Supreme Court ruled that age had to be the primary factor when you litigate. It could not be a motivating factor.
Okay.
But for, say, race or religion, that can be a motivating factor. And so that puts a much more burden of proof on the person who is facing age discrimination to prove their case.
That makes sense.
And it makes it a lot harder to litigate and win in court against employers. And so while we do have some protection, it's just not as strong as the other forms of discrimination. And there's a lot of cases the EEOC won't even litigate on.
Wow.
Because they feel, it doesn't meet the standard.
Yeah. Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah. And so there is a bill that was put into Congress, but it will not go out of committee. I mean, there's just no movement on it. It's the Protecting Older Workers Against Discrimination Act. And this would amend the ADEA to state that an unlawful employment practice is established when a protected characteristic was a motivating factor for any employment practice, even though other factors also motivated the practice. So it would strengthen the Age Discrimination and Employment Act. But like I said, and I've talked to our legislators here, really nothing has happened because it's got some bipartisan support, but it just won't get out of committee. For example, our senator here and House Rep, a couple that I've spoken to, they would need to get a Republican to co-sponsor it. They call it, I think, Noah's Ark, like 2 by 2. Like they need.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
okay. Yeah. Yes.
It's just sitting there.
Yeah. Aren't politics fun?
It's complicated and can be very frustrating, especially when, this is something I think a lot of people would support. Except, to be honest with you, some business owners will not support this.
I know. That's horrible to say. And, that's one of the things, too, and I always mention this whenever I'm coaching someone, whether it comes back into the idea of company culture. If you're trying desperately to get into this one company that's like your dream company, but then they're saying things like, we want people with a youthful attitude in their job descriptions, and you might fall into like one of these older categories, like as poor Gen Xers are starting to turn into, whiny me. But keep that in mind. They're not valuing people of our generation. They're not valuing people as a whole. They're looking for that stereotype, and is that the kind of culture that you really want to be a part of?
Yeah. And there are some companies that really take the conscious capitalism seriously, if you've heard of that, working towards a better world. Not just having a product or service that you're selling, but also creating an egalitarian and better world. Those are companies you want to support. I mean, but there are cases, like in Black Hawk and universities here that have had issues with age discrimination. And, you just have to look and see, do I want to work for that type of company?
Yeah, and one last thing that I always encourage people to do is, number one, HR is always looking for an easy cut. Meaning, they don't actually hire anybody, they just cut candidates. So sometimes, that's why we have to do things like limit the amount of experience that's listed on the resume. Typical best practice is just list your last 10 to 15 years of experience, because that's what they care about, and things like this. So it's tricks you have to do to get through the hiring maze, so to speak. But you do have alternate method. And that's where I always encourage people to get in touch directly with hiring managers. Because there are, in fact, managers that are going to overlook some things if they can believe in your talent. And they know the kind of personality and skill set and real abilities they need on their team. And sometimes even the fact of being able to track somebody down, like through LinkedIn, they see that as very tenacious, and they're more inclined to speak to people who overcome those barriers.
Speaking of LinkedIn, it's interesting. Someone reached out to me through LinkedIn. He was looking, he's in his 60s, and he said that he applies and he feels very qualified. He has a fear, though, that because he has a LinkedIn profile with a picture, that once they see his photo, that could be a deterrent. There's no proof, these are all assumptions, like I said.
There is one way to see if that's really going on. You know how you can look and see who's looked at your LinkedIn profile?
Yes.
So one of the things I warn people about is if you applied at a company, you see that like their HR department or someone in the organization looked at your profile and then they never contacted you, or you get a rejection after that, that means something in your profile scared them off. Whether it's the picture or your experience didn't match what was on the resume, things like this. You don't necessarily need to go out and like dye your hair. I mean, I do, because I was doing a lot of videos and I don't look as good on camera with it not being dyed. But sometimes you can use the filters on the picture settings and make it a grayscale or a sepia tone, and it makes you look younger.
Yeah. And it's a shame, though, that
I know it sucks that we have to do this, but sometimes we got to play the game.
Yeah, I know. Hopefully, there'll be some cultural changes and shifts, and like I said, just bringing awareness and going back to something Ashton Applewhite said. Ageism is the prejudice that pits us against our future selves. Really keeping that in mind. Yeah. One day, you too will be my age, and then so just keeping that in mind. Yeah,
it's all going to happen. So thank you very much, Nancy, for being here. So now's my favorite part of the show, where we get to talk about tattoos. But you don't have a tattoo, do you?
I don't. I'm sorry. I don't like pain.
Pain? They're not that painful. Well, I take that back. Depends on where you're getting it. Yeah.
I've got a low tolerance for it. So.
Yeah. I'll tell you a little bit about one of my tattoos that I have. It's actually the smallest tattoo I have. And it's a couple of snakes that are kind of in like a Celtic configuration. And it's down towards my ankle on my right foot, like kind of near the Achilles tendon. It actually would have been like really cool if I went down further, but I was like scared that it was going to hurt too much.
Yeah.
So I know, and I'm like heavily tattooed, and even I got shied off on that one. But the whole point of it, because all my tattoos have meaning, is that's like my grounding element. Because I tend to have high and lofty ideals. And snakes are a symbol of transformation and change. But it's also down on my foot to keep me grounded, so I can put all these lofty changes and ideals into play in the real world.
That's good.
See? Yeah. So, not all that weird.
No, I mean, I'm fascinated by some tattoos I see, and the craftsmanship and artistry, and people, they have meaning to people, and I love it. I just like looking at it rather than having one myself.
I can accept that. I am good to go with that one. So once again, my guest today is Nancy Fingerhood. So please give us all your contact information, where we can find out more about this project, I Too Am Qualified.
You can contact us through the website, itooamqualified.wordpress.com, and there is a contact page. We'd love to hear from you. And there's also Twitter, which the handle is itooamqualified.
Great. So my name is Donna Shannon. My company is Personal Touch Career Services. I hate to admit this, I can't remember the artist who actually did my tattoo. I know this one, it's old. It's one of my older ones. But it was done, I believe, through Emporium of Design which is in downtown Denver. just to give them a shout out because they've done a lot of my work over the years. As my producer keeps reminding me, I need to tell you to hit our like button, follow us. We're on all kinds of different podcast platforms, and now we even have an Instagram page. So look for Tattooed Freaks in Business Suits on Instagram. You know what would be awesome if you wouldn't mind sharing one or two of your images? We totally link back to you so that yeah, people can get an idea of this powerful movement that you've been working on.
Great, absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much again for coming in, and we shall see everybody next time.